We've made pretty much every mistake that you could have made in running an online fitness business. And we've been through some of those, but I think there's three kind of pillars to setting something up like this, or even outside of the industry, that you really have to have clear before starting, and it'll pretty much guarantee your success. Unfortunately, they're simple, but they're not easy. So, number one is decide what it is that you want out of your life. How much do you want to make? How much do you want to work? What do you want your week to look like? Because as soon as you start building, you're building towards something. And it's very easy for people to just get their head down on the grindstone, work towards something. 2 years later, they realize they've set up a life that actually isn't very enjoyable for them. Or they've put the Facebook pixel in the wrong place, as Johnny says, and they've optimized for money. And actually all they wanted in life is to spend more time with their family, or vice versa.
And even beyond that, people who we speak to a lot of people in this position where they'll optimize for revenue. We were speaking about this yesterday. Like, you optimize for revenue instead of optimizing for profit, or like what that week to week looks like. So one of the reasons we're against the high ticket model is unless you're successful in charging like really $3,000 or more for your fitness package at scale on a repeated basis, you're going to have a very small profit, and you end up charging, like $1,200 or $1,300 or something, which is technically not high ticket, but you still have to sell it over a call. You've got very small margins, lots of effort, lots of time on the phone. Yeah, you might have big revenues, but you have very small profits. So you can optimize for, I want to build a big online fitness business, but actually you have very few hours left in the day because everything's manual, and you have very little cash left over at the end because so much of it goes out the door. And if you throw yourself into building that, you probably won't really realize how bad that is for years down the line. So really sitting and thinking about, as Yusuf says, like, I'm going to point all my attention towards this thing and do it for 2 years. What does the end product actually look like? Like, what does my week look like once I've built it?
100%. So don't get drawn in for claims about six-figure fitness business, because you could do that relatively easily. You could make 6 figures of revenue and be severely unprofitable. But
yeah, we'd be loss making.
Yeah. So what you really want is take home profit. And for that, you can always run a much leaner operation and have lower stress in the meantime as well. We've spoken to people that run large scale operations, and their margins are so thin and so vulnerable to market shocks that what they're doing is like really running faster and faster on the hamster wheel without much juice at the end of it.
So what would we set our target as if we were starting again? It's a hard question, I guess, isn't it? Or maybe a little bit biased.
So having time freedom is massive. And when you do that, then you have thinking space, you've got bandwidth. And a lot of CEOs, as the company grows, they need to carve out more and more time for just sitting and thinking. And that's really one of the luxuries that only the very rich of this world have, is to have time to sit and think. So if you can short circuit that whole thing and build a week that you have time to sit and think, then you've won. And that time is always going to be the highest return. Yes, you're not physically outputting in that time, but you're able to really look at the map from helicopter view and say, okay, here's a couple of switches that need to be made, and they will carry much higher return than just if you were to fill up every hour of the day just grinding away.
So we would want to set something up such that the business performance wasn't linked to our hours, basically. I think we're both in the same boat on this, where I find it more rewarding doing something, making something, or teaching or coaching in a way that is helping like 50 people at once than just having a one-to-one conversation with someone. I think I've always found that more exciting. I don't really know why. Not because there's like more revenue involved or anything like that, but I think if I could spend like an afternoon, and I'm either doing like one-to-one check-ins in that afternoon, or I'm making a set of modules for everybody in the program, I find making the modules like this could be shown to like hundreds of thousands of people. I find that way more like engaging and way more rewarding, I think, than feeling like I have to be like on it the whole time to deliver like good check-ins, and that the client's just getting whatever version of me exists at that point in time. Like if I'm tired, they get a shit service, versus like if I nail these modules, they're there forever now. I think we both sit on that side of the fence, don't we? With like,
yeah, massively. That's me just elbowing the table there. So the reward loop is different. So it feels more immediately rewarding to work with someone one-on-one, but there's absolutely no longevity or leverage in that. And so once you get a taste of the leverage and you realize that something you recorded 3 years ago is still paying off, then you start to go, oh, hang on, like 1 hour of work could really be multiplied multiple times. And it's this idea that, gets me very excited of like being able to copy and paste yourself, the best version of yourself, and propagate that everywhere. And then you've got an army of versions of you doing the work and delivering the best version of a service or a bit of content or whatever it is all over the internet, serving the people who are searching for that specific problem. Like, how cool is that? So,
because you and I are both like, we both used to have this where like you'd have a call with a client or you'd reply to an email or whatever, and you were like, you just had your morning coffee, you had a great night's sleep, and you were like on it, and you're like, I smashed that. Like they asked me those questions and I smashed that explanation. But because it was in a one-to-one context, it just disappears. And you're just like, oh, well, like tomorrow when client number 10 asks me that question, I'm going to have to answer it again. And like, you might feel overall like you're giving a good service, but individually, these people, like clients, have like different experiences of like, what, he took like 4 days to reply to that email because you were on holiday, or you were just really tired when you responded. And so they get a really short response. So yeah, I think taking everything out of us, knowledge-wise, and putting it into material, resources, systems would allow, I think, probably us to run Propane in the way that we want to, and give us the time freedom we want and the week that we want, and build a business in the way that we want to build it.
Yeah,
so we've got the
absolutely.
end point. We've got like the target you're shooting for.
The pressure is higher as well. If you're working one-to-one with someone, you could be operating at 50% capacity and you might still get a happy customer. Or you could be operating at 100%, you still get a slightly happier customer, but as you say, there's no residual value in that. Whereas if you nail it on a video or on a podcast or a piece of content, and that's you operating at 100%, you manage to catch yourself on a really good day, that has the chance of really outperforming other bits of content of its type online. And the algorithms are set up such that content like that will do really well. And so it's like there is more pressure on you, but if you nail it, the rewards are delimited.
There's also like from a coaching perspective, there's only so many units of time in a week. So if you have 20 clients and you sign up 5 more, there's not really any way in which the existing 20 don't experience a slightly worse service from you. Or, the 26th client, the 27th client, they're not getting anywhere near the same experience that clients 1 and 2 got. And that's always going to be the problem with that kind of service and coaching. Whereas if you make a series of videos and products and downloads, they're always the same. Like you can have 10,000 people consuming those and they all have the same experience of that. And like they'll all have questions, which is a separate operational problem. But there's, as good as you can make that, like suddenly you can help way more people. So instead of going from like, I run a business in a gym and I can only work with 30 people in the gym, so I know I'll set up something online where I can only work with 30 people online and have the same frustrations and the same problems. Like use technology to your advantage and you just take things out of your head and put them into material. So
yeah. There's a double-edged sword of this as well, which is that because of that leverage, the fact you're just copying and pasting yourself, you're spamming that copy paste Control V everywhere, that the feedback loop is really accelerated. So any errors that you make, any deficiencies in your explanation will also multiply. So it forces you to really hone it and make sure it's better and better, because tiny mistakes can lead people. If you explain something poorly in a module, and then you send 300 clients through that, you're probably going to get a lot of questions or a lot of people doing the wrong thing because you phrased it poorly or whatever. I posted a video on TikTok about fat loss, and at like 1 minute 30, I say the word kilogram weirdly, just by accident. I say kilogram, and 400,000 people have seen that video, and the comments are just spamming with
Oh no.
kilograms. I'm like, what? I don't say that. And then I played it back, and you're like, oh yeah, in that one time, I did say it weird, and that's it, immortalized on the internet.
So let's use that as a segue to talk about how we would promote things, because I think people see what we do and see what we say and think like that seems a little contradictory. These guys are posting on TikTok, they're posting on YouTube, they're posting on Instagram, they've got a podcast. How does that like marry with what you teach in your program, what you teach in your webinars and all these sorts of things of like how you start? The reason we do all that stuff now, I wrote an email about this the other day, like the main reason we do that is retargeting. So there is the side benefit of like, if you do well on any of those platforms and they grow on their own, fantastic. But principally, if you have a single point of entry for every new person in your business, after they enter your business digitally, so they come through the digital doors, and during that first period of time, you roll out your very best experience, like the best thing you can possibly do. A small number of those people are going to go, that was the best digital experience I've ever had. How do I buy something from you? Right? Great. Everyone's happy. But most of those people, 95% plus, are not going to buy then. So what do we do with those people? The great thing about TikTok, Instagram, podcasts, YouTube is the problem on the internet is trust or lack of trust, especially compared to working in a gym, right? Because as Yusuf pointed out, we might be AI. You've got no idea, right? So how do we show you we're not AI? Like an AI can write an email, an AI can like do a funnel once, but if we have videos about us or we have podcasts where you can listen to us talking or you can follow us for a long period of time in various places, it creates this illusion of omnipresence, right? You go on TikTok, there's Johnny and Yusuf. You go on Instagram, oh my God, there's Johnny and Yusuf again. And if you've heard about us through an ad that you saw 6 months ago, you join our email list and then those emails encourage you to like, hey, check us out on all these other things, you're more likely to sign up with us. But none of those things are by themselves trying to become the principal source of sales and revenue and growth in the business. And so that's why it seems a little bit contradictory for us to say, don't bother with any of that. Just launch your 14-day challenge. But we are doing those things ourselves because we're at a different stage in the business and we've got the team size to be able to devote time to that. But we certainly wouldn't, if we were starting on day one, it wouldn't be like, let's try and crack YouTube and hope that that's going to be the thing that gets us from 0 to 30 clients in a period of time.
Yeah, the organic stuff is unreliable, so it's not something that you can just start doing and expect that to bring in clients on day one. It's a slow burn, and it's really more of an amplifier to your existing engine. So step one is always going to be get an offer that converts, because you have to walk before you can run. Once you've got that working, then you create this web of the idea of the law of loose ties. That content is really what David Perel calls a serendipity vehicle. That the more threads and pieces you have weaving into the same rope, the stronger the rope becomes. And that amplifies your message, and it also allows you to gradually increase your margins, because if your organic stuff is growing more and more over time, you're then able to slowly reduce the ad spend on that offer that's converting well and keep more of the profits that you make. So that's kind of how it works. And also, obviously, in the program, we do teach the kind of most efficient way to generate content and be prolific across multiple platforms without having to like spend hours and hours doing it. And the in short, it's the idea of having pillar content. So you have your central theme of the week that you then split it, or you record as a long form thing. You then chop out the bits that are highlights from there and spread it across the different platforms suited for the length or the format of that platform. We also don't recommend trying to do everything at once. That was a big mistake that we made, and I think we talked about this on one of the mistakes episodes, of trying to just keep up with all the exciting, shiny stuff of Snapchat and email and Facebook and Twitter and everything. That you're much better off picking one platform and dominating it, particularly nowadays where the standard is very high. So pick something that you find frictionless to create. So maybe that's writing, in which case do Twitter and blogging, or maybe it's speaking, so do podcasts and maybe video, and lean into that and just go with what is generating you the most leads.
The other sort of, and this is hard to explain without like visual prompts, but if you think of it this way, that like, let's say your goal is 30 clients, or like our goal, because we're starting again. So our goal is 30 clients. Well, let's say it's 30 clients per person in the business. So if we create, obviously we teach a 14-day challenge, 14-day sales sequence. So we're going to build that around our niche, which is busy finance professionals, right? So without just to use the generic like busy professionals, because that's what everyone does, right? So people who work in office jobs, who are kind of where we used to be, we have an offer for them that we think fixes their problem, and we have a way of selling that over a 14-day period. We're going to start by slowly and incrementally spending money on advertising. This is like the simplest, most lightweight version to get people who fit that demographic and fit that psychographic to go through this thing, and we'll get a percentage of them buy. And all we want to really maintain is like, at least if you spend £100, you want to be making 120 back, for example, right? At minimum, because that's going to cover your costs with a bit of buffer. They're buying something that's recurring though. So they might spend £100 for sake of example on day one, but if they keep getting rebilled and the program's good and we're good at coaching them and we can get them results and they stay for a year, suddenly that's over £1,000 across a year. And that snowballs and builds, right? So we keep running ads, we keep doing it until we hit 60 people, right? And the process of hitting 60 people, a lot of other things will have happened as a side effect. So at that point, we're like, right, we've hit 60. That's what we're going to do. We'll turn the ads off. As a result of doing that, we've built a pretty big email list. Probably as a result of as a side effect of building the email list, we can now say to that email list, like, hey, we're going to start on Instagram. We're going to start TikTok. We're going to start a podcast. There'll be a churn though. Right, so the 60 people, they'll slowly leave over time. And the goal is to use this like body of this audience you built over time to just replace that churn. Right, so month one person leaves. You send out an email and say, hey, another spot's opened up on the program. Who wants it? First come, first served. Here's the link. You fill that spot. And you just keep doing that. And you remain incredibly profitable for a very long time, building up like stockpiling cash in the business. So that if we say, right, maybe we want to go to 120 clients now, we can turn the ads back on again. We've got the system that we know that works, and our email list and our audience and all those things get bigger. We're at the point now where our ads served, mentioned this to you yesterday, I think our ads served 1.5 million impressions in July. Right, so we showed our business in front of 1.5 million people in a month just to get new people in. Because we know that if we can get new people in and we can break even on that cost, in a year's time, in 2 years' time, we can just rely on that audience. So that's the model that we're very behind. And it allows you to do things like start posting on TikTok as like a nice side effect, right? And it helps people buy. It also helps new people find us. So that's the target we've got, and we're building all this around a lifestyle, and we've got the model that we would follow and how we would do it. Is there anything else we would do?
So on that note, So we've defined the lifestyle, we've defined what it is that you want and what you want the time, money, balance to look like, and the model. You then find a coach who teaches that, who is able to get that result for people. There are many business coaches online. Obviously, we're the best ones, obviously, but
goes without saying.
But there's you also want to look at like what are their testimonials saying? Like what are these people doing most of the week? And is that how you want your week to look like? So make sure that the result and the method that you're going to follow, and there will be a method, there'll be a template to follow, but make sure it matches your goal. Otherwise, you're following someone else's map to take you to someone else's destination. You don't have time to figure it out and execute. You've got time for one of those things. And so, fortunately, in the age of information, there will be someone who's been through any path that you seek out, and they'll be able to accelerate that journey for you by exchanging their time and experiments and wasted efforts with your money. But just make sure that it's the right path, that it's the path that you want to emulate and the destination that you want to get to.
I think there's a few other, so testimonials is one. There's a few other things to consider. So I would always ask, like it's building a business online, right? So things are going to go wrong at some point, or things are not going to work at some point. Because if it just worked for everybody without ever failing at all, it would be like a money printing system, and it would be probably made illegal. So there's going to be things that are going to happen that make it difficult, right? It makes sense that it's difficult. The key thing is what the coach is going to do about that when something goes wrong for you, when something doesn't work for you. So is it like you're in the program for 9 weeks and you get kicked out, and if it hadn't worked in that time, well, that was your fault. You didn't work hard enough. Red flag number one. Red flag number two, oh, well, if it doesn't work, it's always like a mindset issue, or it's always going to work if you just post more or work harder or all these sorts of things. In any like big business, they have like workflows and operating procedures for when something isn't working, and they should be able to present that to you. So like the system that I teach operates like this. If this part of it doesn't work, then we have like these 5 things that we would try. This is probably the one I've got the most conviction over. We'll try that one first. It should be like that. And if it's just posting on social media, which is what a lot of people teach, frankly, if that doesn't work for you, the answer is actually a Facebook HQ, why it's not working. They don't have the answer, and they will never be able to have the answer. So they will default to something like, it's a mindset problem. You aren't trying hard enough. You didn't post enough last week. You need to call out your audience more. All these kind of like bullshit, quick bits of advice that like makes it feel like it's your fault. So I definitely dig into that. Like, what if it doesn't work, what are you going to do about it? And also, I think it should all logically make sense, right? If it's got to like make mathematical sense what they're explaining. Because if it doesn't, and it all falls to like, well, it's just this one hack that might not make sense to you, but if you just follow my lead, it will make sense. It should make basic logical mathematical sense what they're saying. Because a lot of the time it doesn't.
What is the plan when things go wrong? And if there isn't one, are they so confident that you're just going to nail it the first time and that anyone can do it, that there doesn't need to be a backup plan, and you're gonna hit a home run straight out the park without them knowing anything about you or about your business?
It'd be like a coach saying, like, I've got a diet plan that works for everybody, that always works without ever needing changing. And someone going, well, do you not think you need to adjust my macros? No. Never adjust the macros.
You just need
It's
to
just this training program, this nutrition plan. If it doesn't work for you, you just weren't following it. Like, that would sound like bullshit, wouldn't it? That's because it is bullshit. So, so in business coaching, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. But because it's business, it's like, I think it's easier to say something and just hide behind complexity or implied complexity and hope people don't ask you any questions.
That's also why we are so transparent with the method and the model that we use and that we teach. And Johnny goes through it in full detail. You know, it's not hiding the one secret that business gurus don't want you to know. Like it's literally like, here it is. You're welcome to go and follow it yourself. Or if you want help through each stage of the journey, there's no mystery. We're just going to walk you through it and help accelerate the learning process through all the kind of wasted ad spend that we've spent over the years, so that you don't have to.
Yeah, I think is it Alex Hormozy says, like, you pay for the program either way. Like, you either pay with your time or your money. Like, you either pay by trying to figure it out on your own over the next 5 years, or you just buy the program now and compress that into the next 5 weeks, or whatever example he uses. It's just so hard to really take that advice on board unless you've tried to do it yourself already, isn't it?
That's true. So we've decided on how you want your week to look. Find a relevant coach who teaches that, and make sure that their advice is robust, and make sure you can kind of verify their model. And if something goes wrong, that there's a way to self-correct in the system. And then number 3, the thing that we would do if we were starting again And this is proper granddad advice. Are you ready for the granddad advice? It
I'm
is
ready.
get your mind and your life in order. Simplify and focus. Because one of the biggest ways that we see people fail at setting up an online fitness business is just they might have a good strategy, they might have a good result that they can get for their clients, they might be a great coach, but they're living a chaotic life. They've got loads of stuff in their personal life that's going on at once, or they're trying to work 2 jobs, and they're going through a divorce, and they've got no semblance of a task management system, and so you can see that they're just kind of falling through life. So it's basic stuff, but if that's not in place, how can you expect to create something that's orderly and profitable and predictable out of chaos?
Yeah. And I think it always, I think your business will always bring out the deepest insecurities and fears and worries and any bias you have. Like it just gets amplified, especially as the numbers get bigger. Because as the numbers get bigger, the problems just change in flavor, and severity and size. And so like you just have to keep, if you are sort of entering this with chaos behind you or surrounding you, that will just amplify as well. Like the business will become chaotic, the systems will be chaotic, client experience will be chaotic. Sounds a bit woo-woo, but it definitely does pan out like that.
Well, if you listen to the episode 2 weeks back with Chris Brown, he goes deep into this, into all the stuff about fixing the internal chaos, because that will just play out in your business. And
Yeah.
it's just like a mirror. I think the more I see that happening, the less woo-woo I realize it is, and the more kind of it's just like a law of physics that your outer reality is just a reflection of your internal state.
Yeah. I think that, the advice we used to get a lot was like, well, if you don't invest in yourself, you can't expect other people to invest in you. I think that matters only insofar as like how much confidence you have behind why people should buy your service. Like imagine you're paying for a fitness coach that's the same price or twice the price of what you charge. You absolutely see the value in what you're doing. Like there's no doubt whatsoever. So I think there's just an example of like, if you're investing in yourself personally, or if things are organized, you don't mind spending money to improve things. You follow instructions. You're good with your training yourself. Like your ability to convince other people to do that, your ability to run a business effectively, will just increase.
There we go. So the 3 principles behind if we were starting Propane again. Let us know if you have any questions, and also let us know if you knew what on earth was going on with the impossible press up.
Yeah. Seriously though, please do help with that.
Speak to you next
Is that
week.
it? Is that everything?
That's
We're finished.
everything. We're done. Oh,
Internal temp. Oh no.
perfectly timed.